Good morning. Welcome to Presence of Light with Charlie Riverman. And I want to welcome you and embrace you in light and love. I want to play a little harmonic vibration. Never know how hard or how soft I hit those, but I just want to open this space with that sound vibration, as well as the sound of my voice. It's a topic today that has been on our minds all week, about success and failure and the rise and fall of empires, the discussion of who's right and who's wrong and who has rights and who doesn't have rights. And it's been a challenge for me this week, and I'm sure for others around the world, it has also been a challenge, whether you live here in the United States or you watch it from a distant shore. It isn't pretty. And it reminds me of the fall of the Roman Empire and many other civilizations. Our own indigenous people here in this country, I'm sure, are suffering deep wounds as they see the same energy being played out that their ancestors had to suffer with as people came and took over through violence and unwillingness to compromise and listen. So this is a story of humanity. And this morning I woke up, I said, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. And the story of David and Goliath from the Bible, my guides put that in my mind. And so, interestingly, that was my first thought on arising. It's the perfect story of what's going on. It's the big giant ogre, the controller, and the child. And as we see playing out in this country now, it's the children who are standing up to this overbearing being that has made rules and regulations and demands that are no longer rational or viable for the sustainability of the whole country. And so we realize that it's been perverted. And the message was that David had enough faith in his God, his creator being, to stand up. This small child raised the courage to stand up and face this demon, this overbearing being, and overcome it. Now, it's a story of violence, and I'm not advocating that. But I also see in it the bravery. I see in it the willingness of a child to deepen their relationship with who they really are inside of themselves, to seek to make a difference, knowing full well that they might die in the process, that they might lose. There's a possibility. And the story is really encouraging for me and for all of us to look at our own childhood. And that's what I looked in my life this week, was my own childhood, which wasn't pleasant in a lot of respects. But it was typical, based on a world that has been wrapped up in patriarchy for thousands of years and overbearing rulers and just not caring enough about each other to really embrace the power of what we can do when we co-create And so we've put all these labels on things, democracy, patriotism, all of this stuff. They're just labels, and they really have no value. And that may upset people. Democracy is within your heart. It isn't outside of us. It isn't a label. Civility is not something you can buy and sell. Compassion is not an object. It's not an electronic game. This is what we've lost. This is what we've lost. And each one of us are suffering as a result of that on some level. So how do we rise above all of this and look and say, empires have failed, countries have come and gone. This is all part of the, social network of humanity. I have an article called The Decline and Fall of Modern Civilization. Are we civilized? I'm not so sure anymore. But there was 8 points to what's happening right now, and it's all playing out on a grand scale for each of us to view and review from a place of stillness, yet not complacency. We need to act on this if we are to save humanity. I say that, save humanity from collapse. If we look in the back in the history, we have history, humanity, there's been collapses. They're typically called the dinosaur who became extinct. Okay. The runaway train, which is where we're at now, it's just going haywire. Nobody can reel it in. And so who knows what ultimate damage that runaway train is going to cause. The House of Cards, which I love those terms when I read them, was everything's collapsing and everything's falling in on itself. And we know at the end there's going to be this pile of rubble that we're going to have to clean up. So I'm not telling anybody anything you don't already know. You're all aware of this. The problem is it's affecting you deeply on an inner level. And it's eroding the fabric, the spiritual fabric of who we all are. And I'm not talking about structured religion. I'm talking about spiritual connection. And so in this 8 simple steps to that they talk about squandering all, it's cognitive dissonance, denial, delusive ideology, aversion to judgment, political correctness, moral equivalency, identity loss, and surrender. And I will post a link to that page because it's worth a read to really look at what's happening. And this is not the first time because it's been written about. And I think this article was written in 2015. But we know this. We know this innately in our body. We lived it as children in our own personal lives. My own personal childhood was, my masculinity was so threatened from the patriarchal system. And it sounds so bizarre. Why would men do this to male children? Why would we live in a society that turns its face away from the criminal activity that we're perpetrating on our own children? And for what? For what? Greed? Power? Ego? Is it worth it? I know that all of you that I'm talking to are not of the ilk where you can't see it all. But in my own personal life, and I feel called to share this with you, to allow you to see that all of us have been damaged in some way by this insanity of power and control that doesn't start with governments. It starts with individuals. And so for me, when I was a child, and this week, all my childhood issues have come up around masculinity, because the warrior in me wants to come out with swords in both hands and just go. And yet I've come through life and death experiences to sit here now and say, that isn't the way. I don't know what the way is, but I do know that that is not the way. Attack only begets attack. No matter how angry I get, no matter how hurt I feel, striking out is exactly what they want me to do. And when I play that game, I lose. And the history of my life has taught me that. I joined a gang at 8 years old because I was being bullied. And so I joined the gang for protection. This is street life. This is street life. For those of you who don't know street life, this is street life. I became part of that gang, and these were supposed to be my family on the streets. But that family on the streets abused me sexually, physically, and emotionally. Part of being a gang member. Toughen you up. Sure it did. It toughened me up a lot. But it never destroyed my heart. All it did was made me build a larger wall around my heart so that nobody would ever see me weak again. I can say this now. I'm not afraid of my weakness. Just like David, when he faced Goliath, was not afraid of his perceived weakness. There was a part of him that tapped into a higher self that said, no, my child, I've got your back. This is what we got to do. We got to look within and really deepen that relationship with our spiritual nature. After gang life, I grew up, I became a teenager, I became a protester, equal, rights activist. I became a lot of different things, trying to express my passion for the suffering of others. In the meantime, I was raped, I was beaten. I laugh because it destroyed me. It destroyed my masculinity, my ability to, my virility as a male, my power to say my maleness has value. And what it taught me was my maleness was victimhood. How sad that many of you that I'm speaking to right now, both male and female, have had your sovereignty so destroyed that today, at whatever age you are, the pain is still there. And as we go through this world and we see the senseless shooting of innocent children in a school by another child who is sick and needed help, and nobody heard him. And when they did hear him, they denied him the assistance that he truly needed. And then was fed the concept through TV, video games, all of this, that violence is the way out. And the quicker and the more violence or violently you can do this, the greater you're empowered. And that's the message. He felt empowered with that automatic weapon. He felt so empowered that he played God in that moment. I send him light and I send him love, because he is tortured in his soul right now. What we do to him on this earth is meaningless, because he will incarnate and incarnate and incarnate and carry that energy with him. And so the only way out of this, really, last night I called it the hamster wheel. We've been put on a hamster wheel and we're in a slave system. We call it democracy, but it's not. We're enslaved by democracy in this country. It's a reality. We're on a hamster wheel. And they're harvesting the energy that we have, positive energy, to support them and raise them up to these levels of ego that are so out of balance that even the spiritual leaders of the country have joined sides with them, because it's so powerful that they're actually even denying their own teachings and messages and standing alongside of them and saying, "Oh no, this is what's good for you." It's not. None of it is good for us. It's not good for us. It's not good for the earth. It's the male ego gone crazy. So for you who want to hate me, want to believe me. It doesn't matter. I'm planting these seeds in your mind because there's a way out, and the way out is really simple. We have to get off the hamster wheel, and right now we're chained to it. We can't get off of it immediately. But we do it in small steps, just like we breathe our way through life, one breath at a time. Then it's just one breath. You stop breathing for long enough, you're not going to be here. So it's, in reality, very simple. What happens is we have to embrace the fact that each one of us has always been a sovereign being. We were gifted by that which we call creator or God or source, however you want to look at something greater than us that we can't physically taste, smell, touch, or whatever, yet lives within us. And we have been taught to deny it over and over and over again, to the point where we're believing that some government is more powerful than that which created us. And this government, these governing agencies have found out how to create life. They've found out how to genetically modify life. And they're going to play God. And they're doing it right now. Instead of saying, how can we use all this wisdom and all this technology and all this science to improve life for everyone? They're saying, we want it all to improve it just for us. And we need your energy to feed it. So we're sort of the electric current that's fueling this, and we have to slowly detach. So I get a little lengthy here and a little wordy, and the hands go crazy, and Charlie gets passionate, and Riverman tries to maintain a flow. We have to slow down. I think all of us can look at how fast things are happening and going. We don't have control over the greater speed of outside of us, but we do have a master control over the speed at which we engage with it. Slow down. Slow down your breathing. Slow down your eating. Slow down your accomplishing. Find a place of stillness, because the greatest way for anybody to overpower us is to keep us moving at a pace faster than we can accept and acknowledge within our own mental construct. So they speed the wheel up. They speed the hamster wheel up, and we run faster. And we think we're making the wheel go. But in reality, we get to a point where we're just running on the wheel so that we don't fall down and somebody trample us. And that's where we're at. It's my analogy. And it's done through mass consumption. We've been programmed to consume, and consume. To devour. The word devour. I see this voracious monster devouring. Yeah, I get visions when I talk. This monster devouring the planet. That's what I see. It's not happening per se in reality, but it's the analogy of that. We become these lost souls who are just devouring everything that this Goliath is feeding us. And the more we eat, then the more we serve, the greater Goliath becomes. So we need to stop, slow down. We need to, the first thing I think I had somewhere on one of my notes was water, clean water. Right now, water is going to be the next world war. I don't like to say that. That's what it's going to be about. Because they know that there is no survival without water. And if it's poisoned, then you're going to have to go to Goliath to drink. So we have to clean our water, find clean water, encourage clean water, and drink clean water. Clean our systems. Clean air, there's a limit of what we can do, but fight for the cleanness of the atmosphere, the cleanliness of the earth. Return the earth to its sustainability. Right now, the Mother Earth is at a point of sustainability in itself that is not conducive to living beings on its surface. Doesn't matter who's doing it. We're all doing it. Let's consume less. Let's find non-adulterated foods, because the foods are being altered for one reason. It isn't to make healthier people. If that was the case, people would be healthier, and they're not. They're sicker. And when they're sick, they give them medication. And then the medication makes them more sick. And so do you understand what's happened? This whole thing has been portrayed over humanity globally. And just the expression of that child last week acting out in total loss of self, in total loss of sovereignty, in total pain, and in total darkness. He is each one of us. And those children and their families who are suffering, they are each one of us. There is no separation. And we can't pretend there is anymore. And this is the truth. This is where we all have to come into our own hearts and raise our own energetic vibrations back into the heart space that we've been sucked out of, and gather together again and get off of this hamster wheel and back into the spiral of life. The universe, everything's a spiral. And what Goliath has done is condensed it into this circle that keeps spinning around and around and around and around and around for no other purpose than to serve whoever, whatever, not the people and the energy that keep it spinning. And it's you and I that keep Mother Earth spinning. We are part of her energy. Her energy is part of us. And so I ask you to think about these things this week. And look at the clock, I only have 4 minutes left. And I would love to say that this will go away and next week everything will be fine. And I really would hope that happens. I don't have my magic wand with me. But if I could manifest my magic wand, I would make that happen. And I know each of you would too, because it is painful and it is hurtful and it's hard to live through everything that's been done to you in your life by watching it play out in front of you. It's torturous. And I know where your frustration and your pain and your suffering and your anguish all lies. But I'm here to tell you, you are more powerful than you think you are. And when we gather together at the heart and we raise that vibration, Goliath is defeated. Not because we've attacked Goliath, but because we were like David and stood firm in who we were. And so, as I close, and I haven't been able to look at the thing today because I knew I wanted to focus on this and not be distracted, I created a little prayer that I'd like you all to just quietly come into prayer pose or rest, and I will read this. And I just want to say that I love you all so very dearly, that when you hurt, I hurt. And I know that you feel the same way, although you may not be able to say it or realize it right now. So with that, let's just take a deep breath. Thank you, Creator, for your grace. Thank you for hearing us in this state of bewilderment. Today, we come to pray for the complete restoration of our collective situation so that we may move forward in our evolution. You know what we are all going through. And we ask for plans to bring about a balance and a flow to inspire us into a co-creative and positive action for all life forms. Restore us to joy and fill us with the spirit of unity. Lead from within our hearts to help us renew all commitments to rebalancing all that has become unstable. Together we ask for renewal and strength in the qualities of leadership that will encourage and inspire not only ourselves, but our children and our children's children. I love you. I thank you. And I respect each and every one of you. May your week be the beginning of the new you who sees life not as the end of the road, not as the fall of an empire, but a new beginning in which we all can participate from the heart. Thank you. Be blessed. See you next week.